first subject is an important one, and it's something I talk about all the time on the show, and that is the word leadership. There are some people that are good leaders, and there are some people that are not good leaders. It takes a certain type of characteristic to be one of those people. Say what you want about Joe Biden. I do believe he's a leader, and I'll prove it for you right now. Joe Biden met with the Floyd family, and in that meeting was Benjamin Crump, members of Floyd's family. Also there was Joe Biden's wife, Jill Biden, Dr. Jill Biden, who was on our show, by the way, a few months ago. Very nice lady. And Joe Biden wanted to share some of his experiences and dealing with grief and pain. This is leadership. So Benjamin Crump was on CNN yesterday talking about that meeting, and he spoke about Joe Biden's visit. Here's how it went.
It was very comforting to the family. He tried to use his personal experiences of loss and grief to help them get ready for the funeral here in Houston, Texas tomorrow. And in many ways, in comforting them, Don, he was also trying to comfort our country. And so the family is extremely grateful to Vice President Biden and Dr. Jill Biden, who was also there, and I mean, really reached out to this family in a way that was quite incredible.
Okay, so when you think of the word leadership, empathy, that's a perfect example of it right there. Now, Donald Trump picked up the phone a couple days after Floyd lost his life, spoke to the family. Members of the family said that it was around a 5-minute conversation and that they had trouble even getting a word in because Trump kept interrupting them and talking over them. Now, that is according to members of the family. And now you have family and Benjamin Crump, who represents the family, saying that Joe Biden went to visit with them.
His name is Crumbs, right? Benjamin Crumbs?
Crumbs,
Crumbs,
I
right.
like to call
Crumbs.
him. Yes,
okay, good.
Crumbs.
I don't want you to go off that because you created that for him last week. I want you to stay strong with Crumbs.
Okay, I don't know what that has to do with empathy and leadership, because we're talking about Joe Biden.
You seem to have changed your position on.
No, I have no respect for Benjamin Crump, but what you're saying has absolutely nothing to do with what I'm talking about right now. But you do that about 30 times a day, so I'm not surprised. All right, well, listen, Benjamin Crumbs, I have no respect for him, but I do have respect for Joe Biden, and the reason why I have respect for Joe Biden is because he met with a grieving family. Actually, it was Joe Biden's wife that said she was going to take it upon herself to make sure that the entire family gets the counseling, the grief counseling that they need. That's leadership. Donald Trump had a 5-minute phone conversation with them, and members of the family said he wouldn't even let them talk.
Brian, do you think that they could not afford grief counseling with the $13.5 million that they've raised for the GoFundMe?
That is not the point of what I am saying. Again, you just brought up something that has absolutely nothing to do with what I'm talking about.
Do you know why Donald Trump wasn't at the funeral?
I didn't say he wasn't. I'm not talking about not being at the funeral.
He wasn't anywhere near the family because he was not invited to any funeral or any memorial.
I'm not talking about the funeral.
That's why Donald Trump wasn't there.
Joe Biden didn't go to the funeral either. Joe Biden did not go to the funeral. I'm not talking about the funeral.
You're talking about a memorial.
I'm talking about showing up in person, face to face, with a grieving family. That's what Joe Biden did. That's what his wife did. Donald Trump did not do that. Donald Trump is the president of the United States. We're talking about empathy, and we're talking about leadership.
After you're disinvited from a funeral, why would you show up to meet them in person?
Well,
obviously, the family did not want to meet up or to be in contact or in touch with Donald Trump
how long has it been?
Any capacity.
So how long?
2.5 weeks, I think.
How long has it been since George Floyd died?
May 25th.
Okay, thank you. So Donald Trump had ample time to actually meet with this family. Now, what did he do instead? Well, I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. Word has it that Donald Trump wanted to go play golf in one of his golf courses in New Jersey last weekend. Now, his advisor said that wasn't a good idea. Why didn't it occur to Donald Trump to maybe, instead of taking a trip to New Jersey to meet with this family and talk with them, instead he made a phone call? Joe Biden took the time with his family, with his wife, to meet with them in person. That is the definition of leadership. And by the way, I've always had a lot of respect for Mitt Romney. Haven't always agreed with him, but I think he's a decent human being. I've always thought Mitt Romney was a decent guy. The other day, Mitt Romney went to one of these Black Lives Matter protests. I thought that was ballsy, for lack of a better term, for him to do that. And then he briefly spoke to the media. He said, I'm here because I believe Black Lives Matter. I thought that was very classy of him to do that. So the press secretary, Kayleigh, was asked if Trump shared Mitt Romney's thoughts on Black Lives Matter. Here is what she said.
Yeah, Mitt Romney can say 3 words outside on Pennsylvania Avenue, but I would note this, that President Trump won 8% of the black vote. Mitt Romney won 2% of the black vote.
Okay, so whoever got the most votes from black people has absolutely nothing to do with that question. She was asked a very specific question about Black Lives Matter and Mitt Romney's take on these protests, and she went ahead and she made it political once again. I want to go now to Piers Morgan, because Piers Morgan made a very interesting suggestion, and I haven't always agreed with Piers Morgan either. I think he's a smart man. By the way, Piers Morgan, for decades, was friends with Donald Trump. Friends. Piers Morgan just suggested on his show yesterday that Donald Trump should take a knee, and I got to tell you something. I agree with it. Have a listen to this.
But imagine if Donald Trump, rather than stirring the fire and pouring fuel on it, imagine if he came out of the White House with those protesters and went down on one knee. Imagine the power of Donald Trump doing that and what impact that might have. In one action, I genuinely believe he could make an enormous difference. I don't think he has it in him. I don't think he thinks it can win him an election, but it would be morally the right thing to do.
I've got to tell you something. I agree with Piers Morgan wholeheartedly, 100%. You know, I remember when George W. Bush went to the Ground Zero site. And, again, never been a huge fan of George W. But I do have some respect for him. And I remember when he went down there and he spoke with some of the first responders, the firefighters, the police officers, and he took the megaphone. And they said, I hear you, and the world hears you. And it was like, it gave me goosebumps. And I think it gave everybody goosebumps. It was a really, really great moment for George W. Bush. It was a great leadership moment, and it felt good to be an American that day. Our president was there at Ground Zero. Good for you, George W. Bush. And I'm telling you, I don't know if it would be genuine or not, probably not, but I agree with Piers Morgan that if he did take a knee in solidarity, I think it would mean something to a lot of people in this country. I couldn't agree more with Piers Morgan. So Kayleigh, the press secretary, at the press conference yesterday was asked about that. Asked, will Trump kneel? If, and his thoughts on these NFL players. Would you support NFL players kneeling? Here's what she had to say.
The president is very much against kneeling in general. The president has made clear for years that kneeling is tied to our national anthem, that it does not respect our military men and women across this country. He's not a fan of the kneeling movement. He's made that very clear, particularly because he thinks it's disrespectful to our military, as the kneeling originated at the kneeling during the national anthem.
So we're not even talking.
Which is 100% true.
No, it's not.
No, Donald Trump has been very, very adamant about being against kneeling because he does believe that it disrespects the flag. And again, this is kneeling during the national anthem. Brian.
So
I'm sure Donald Trump kneels on his own, under whatever circumstances. But this is kneeling during the national anthem, Brian.
During this time of grief that a lot of minorities are going through, and during these protests, it's an important time for Donald Trump to do something, to show empathy.
Well, I think he'll have a conversation soon. Okay. I think he'll have some type of press conference in the near future. I don't know if it'll be ad-libbed, as you said that, yesterday he likes to, when he ad-libs, that's when he gets himself in trouble. I don't know if it'll be ad-libbed or not.
Well,
but
speaking of ad-libbing,
I think he'll say something about that. And you're right. Saying that 2% that Donald Trump got 8% of the vote. What she was trying to say, and she didn't articulate it very well, was that Donald Trump is actually more popular amongst African Americans than Mitt Romney was, which is why she said that. But there is no correlation between that and kneeling.
That's an OAN take. It's idiotic.
No, there's no correlation between the two.
There is absolutely no correlation, and it was idiotic for her to respond in the way she did, and I'm not surprised. And by the way, what Piers
that doesn't
Morgan,
make her an idiot, Brian.
I said it was an idiot. Okay, you don't listen to me.
When you say you're not surprised, then that means that you think that she's an idiot.
It was an idiotic response.
I agree. It wasn't.
Concentrate on the words that I say.
A correlated response.
Concentrate on the words that I say. I will right now call her a liar. She is an enabler for the president, and she is a liar.
I think she's done an outstanding job.
Well, of course you do.
I think she's done an amazing job.
Yeah, because she spouts out lies every day.
No, because she makes reporters accountable every single day, and she takes their words and she twists them and she throws them back in their face on a consistent basis. Well, I am a big fan of Kayleigh McEnany.
Okay, well, I'm not a big fan of anybody that lies every day. So let me just be very clear on that. And she lies every day, and I could give you examples every day of how she lies and when she lies, and she dodges questions. So no, I completely disagree with you on that.